When you think about what destroys trading accounts, what comes to mind? Fear, greed, lack of discipline? Those are the usual suspects everyone talks about. But there's another enemy that nobody mentions. An enemy that's quietly destroying your trades every single day. And that enemy is boredom. You sit down at your desk ready to trade. You open your platform. You look at your charts. Your strategy says there's no setup right now. Wait. So you wait. 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes, still nothing. You check other pairs. Still no valid setup according to your rules. 15 minutes become 30 minutes, 30 minutes become an hour. You're still sitting there staring at charts that aren't doing anything interesting. Your strategy still says wait, but waiting is boring, really boring. Your mind starts to wander. You start thinking, I'm wasting my time here. I could be doing something productive. Why am I sitting here doing nothing? Then another thought creeps in. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there is a trade here and I'm just not seeing it. You look at the charts again. That currency pair moved a little bit. It's not quite a valid setup according to your rules, but it's close. Close enough, right? You've been sitting here for an hour. You need to do something. You need to feel like a trader, not someone just watching screens. So you take the trade. Not because your strategy said to, not because all your rules were met, but because you were bored. Because sitting and doing nothing felt like failure. Because taking action felt productive. And that trade? It loses money. Of course it does. It wasn't a valid setup. Your strategy said to wait for a reason. This happens to traders every single day. Not once, multiple times per day. And over weeks and months, these boredom trades add up to massive losses. Let me tell you about a trader named Yale, who lost $8,000 to boredom before he figured out what was happening. Yale had been trading for about 18 months when he noticed something strange in his trading journal. His worst trades weren't the ones he panicked or got greedy. His worst trades were the ones he took between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. This caught Yale's attention because those hours weren't special. The market wasn't particularly volatile then. There were no major news events. Nothing about those hours should have made his trading worse, but the numbers didn't lie. Trades taken between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. had a 35% win rate. Trades taken during other hours had a 61% win rate. Yale dug deeper into his journal notes. He read what he'd written about those losing trades, and he saw the same phrases over and over. Got impatient. Felt like I needed to do something. Was watching charts for too long. Setup was almost there. That's when Yale realized his problem. Those hours between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. were his slow hours. His strategy didn't produce many valid setups during that time. The market was often choppy and directionless. His rules said to wait or walk away. But Yale never walked away. He stayed at his desk watching charts, getting more and more bored. And eventually, boredom made him take trades he shouldn't have taken. Yale calculated the damage. Over the past 6 months, he had taken 47 trades during those slow hours. Only 16 of them were winners. The 31 losers had cost him $8,000. And when he looked at those 47 trades against his strategy rules, only 12 of them were actually valid setups. The other 35 were boredom trades. If Yale had simply walked away during those slow hours, if he had done literally anything else, he would have saved himself $8,000. He would have been significantly more profitable overall. But understanding the problem didn't immediately fix it, because boredom is a powerful force, and it shows up in ways you don't always recognize.
Recognizing that boredom was costing him thousands made Yale want to understand why this happens. Why does boredom make traders do stupid things? The answer lies in how our brains work. Your brain doesn't like boredom. Your brain is designed to seek stimulation, activity, engagement. When you're bored, your brain actually experiences it as a form of pain. Not physical pain, but psychological discomfort. Studies show that people would rather receive electric shocks than sit alone with their thoughts doing nothing. That's how much the human brain hates boredom. When you're bored, your brain is screaming at you to do something, anything, to make the boredom stop. In normal life, this usually isn't a big problem. When you're bored, you check your phone, you watch a video, you talk to someone, you find something to do. The boredom goes away. But in trading, doing something means taking a trade. And taking a trade costs money. So when you're bored while trading, your brain's natural response, do something to stop the boredom, becomes expensive. Here's what happens in Yale's brain during those boring trading hours. He sits at his desk, no valid setups appear. His brain starts feeling uncomfortable. The discomfort grows. His brain looks for a way to stop the discomfort. It finds one. Take a trade. Taking a trade means action. Action stops boredom. His brain pushes him to take the trade. Yale's rational brain knows this is a bad idea. His rational brain knows the setup isn't valid. But his emotional brain is louder. His emotional brain is screaming, "I'm bored! Do something! Take the trade!" And usually the emotional brain wins. Yale takes the trade. For about 30 seconds, Yale feels good. He's in a trade. He's doing something. He's being a trader. The boredom is gone. Then the trade starts losing, and Yale realizes what he's done. But by then, it's too late. The damage is done. This cycle repeats over and over. Every time Yale gets bored, he takes a trade he shouldn't take. Every boredom trade loses money, but Yale can't seem to stop himself. The problem is that Yale is trying to fight boredom with willpower. And you can't fight boredom with willpower. Boredom always wins, eventually. As Yale studied his boredom trading patterns more deeply, he discovered something useful. Not all boredom trades are the same. There are actually 3 distinct types, each triggered by a different situation. Type 1, the waiting game trade. This is what happens when you're waiting for your strategy's setup to complete, but it's taking too long. Your strategy says you need 3 confirmations before entering. You have 2 confirmations. The third one is taking forever to appear. You're sitting there watching the chart, waiting. The boredom builds. And eventually you think, 2 confirmations is enough. Close enough. I'm taking this trade now. Yale took this type of boredom trade constantly. His strategy required a moving average crossover, an RSI confirmation, and a specific candlestick pattern. Often, he'd get the first 2 quickly, but the candlestick pattern would take time to form. Instead of waiting, Yale would enter the trade early. The pattern is almost there, he'd tell himself. I don't want to miss the entry. But entering early meant entering without a complete setup. And incomplete setups had a much lower win rate. Type 2, the dead time trade. This happens during hours when your strategy simply doesn't produce setups. The market is slow, the market is choppy. Your strategy says, don't trade right now. But you're at your desk. You're supposed to be trading. Doing nothing feels wrong. So you start looking for trades. You convince yourself that maybe your strategy is too strict. Maybe you can find a valid trade if you're just a little bit flexible with your rules. You lower your standards. You take a trade that doesn't quite meet your criteria. For Yale, this happened every day between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. His strategy worked best during high-volume hours, but Yale would keep trading during low-volume hours because he was already at his desk and felt like he should be doing something. Type 3, the revenge boredom trade. This one's sneaky because it combines boredom with another emotion. You take a losing trade, you feel bad about it, you want to recover the loss. But your strategy says to wait for the next valid setup. Waiting feels terrible. You're already frustrated from the loss, and now you have to sit there doing nothing while being down money. The combination of boredom and frustration is powerful. So you take another trade to stay active and recover faster. But you're not actually looking for a good setup. You're looking for any excuse to take a trade because waiting feels unbearable. Yale noticed that 80% of his revenge trades happened within 10 minutes of a loss. That 10-minute window was when the pain of the loss combined with the boredom of waiting created an irresistible urge to trade again immediately. Understanding these three types helped Yale recognize when boredom was about to make him do something stupid, but recognition alone still wasn't enough to stop the behavior.
Knowing he had a boredom problem, Yale tried several solutions. Most of them didn't work, but understanding why they failed taught Yale important lessons about what would eventually work. Failed solution number 1, more willpower. Yale's first attempt was the obvious one. Just don't take boredom trades. Use willpower. Be disciplined. When you're bored, resist the urge to trade. This worked for about 2 days. On day 3, Yale was bored again. He resisted for an hour, then 90 minutes, then 2 hours. Finally, he cracked. He took a boredom trade. And once he took one, he took 3 more that day. Willpower doesn't work against boredom because boredom is relentless. Boredom doesn't get tired, but willpower does. Eventually, you run out of willpower and boredom wins. Failed solution number 2, set a schedule. Yale's next idea was to only trade during specific hours. He decided he would only trade from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. During other hours, he wouldn't even open his trading platform. This worked slightly better. Yale avoided the 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. dead zone, but he discovered a new problem. During his designated trading hours, if no valid setups appeared, he still got bored, and boredom still made him take bad trades. The schedule helped reduce some boredom trades, but it didn't solve the core problem. Failed solution number 3, set trade limits. Yale then tried limiting himself to 3 trades per day maximum. The idea was that if he could only take 3 trades, he'd be more careful about which ones he chose. He wouldn't waste trades on boredom. This backfired spectacularly. Yale would take his first valid trade of the day, then he'd see a questionable setup. He'd think, I still have 2 trades left. I can take this one. The trade limit made him less careful, not more careful, because he felt like he had trades to spend. Plus, on days when Yale took his 3 trades early, he'd spend the rest of the day watching perfect setups appear but being unable to trade them because he'd hit his limit. This was even more frustrating than being bored. Failed solution number 4, background entertainment. Yale tried having a TV show playing in the background while he traded. The idea was that entertainment would prevent boredom. He wouldn't need to take trades for stimulation because the TV show would provide stimulation. This was a disaster. Yale would get absorbed in the TV show and miss actual valid setups, or he'd be distracted during trades and make execution mistakes. The background entertainment solved boredom, but created new problems. After 4 failed solutions, Yale was frustrated, but he was also learning. He was learning that the solution wasn't about fighting boredom. The solution was about removing himself from situations where boredom could make him trade. Now, let me tell you about the solution that actually worked. After months of struggling with boredom trades and trying failed solutions, Yale finally discovered an approach that worked. And it was simpler than he expected. The solution had 3 parts, and all 3 were necessary for it to work. Part 1, the pre-session plan. Before Yale opened his trading platform each morning, he would spend 5 minutes planning his session. Not planning trades, he couldn't know what setups would appear, planning his behavior. Yale would ask himself 3 questions. What hours is my strategy most likely to produce setups today, based on session overlap, economic calendar, etc.? What will I do if no setups appear during those hours? What will I do after I close a trade, win or lose? Yale would write down specific answers, not vague answers like, I'll be patient. Specific answers like, if no setups appear by 10 a.m., I will close my platform and go to the gym. This planning session took 5 minutes, but it prepared Yale's brain. It gave him a predetermined plan for dealing with boredom before boredom hit. Part 2, the activity list. Yale created a list of 15 specific activities he could do instead of trading when he was bored. These weren't just any activities. They had to meet 3 criteria. Physically move him away from his computer, be genuinely interesting or useful, and take at least 30 minutes. Yale's list included things like go for a 30-minute walk, go to the gym, read a physical book at a coffee shop, run errands, work on a side project, call a friend, cook a meal. The key was that these activities removed Yale completely from the trading environment. He couldn't take a boredom trade if he wasn't at his computer. Yale printed this list and put it on the wall next to his monitor. When he felt bored, he didn't try to resist trading. He looked at the list, picked an activity, and left. Part 3, the re-entry rule. This was the most important part. Yale created a rule: after leaving his trading desk, he couldn't return for at least an hour. No exceptions. Even if his phone alerted him to a perfect setup, even if he remembered something he wanted to check, even if he felt less bored, 1 hour minimum away from the desk. This rule prevented Yale from leaving for 5 minutes and coming right back. It forced him to actually do the alternative activity fully. And after an hour away, Yale's perspective always changed. The boredom was gone. The urge to trade randomly was gone. When Yale returned after an hour, he could evaluate setups with a clear mind. If a valid setup was available, he'd take it. If not, he'd wait properly or leave again. This 3-part system transformed Yale's trading. Within 2 weeks, his boredom trades dropped from 5 to 6 per week to less than 1 per week. Within a month, he went entire weeks without taking a single boredom trade. His win rate during his problem hours of 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. jumped from 35% to 59%, not because the market changed, but because Yale stopped taking bad trades during those hours.
Solving the boredom problem didn't just take Yale from taking bad trades. It created unexpected positive effects that improved his entire trading experience. Benefit 1, more energy. Before, Yale would spend 8 hours a day in front of his trading screens. He'd be mentally exhausted by the end of the day. He thought this was normal. Trading is mentally demanding, right? But after implementing his boredom solution, Yale realized something. He wasn't tired from trading. He was tired from fighting boredom for 8 hours. The actual trading, the good trades, the valid setups, those didn't exhaust him. Sitting there bored for hours, fighting the urge to trade, that's what exhausted him. Now, Yale might only be actively trading for 2 hours total in a day. The rest of the time, he was doing other things, and he felt energized, not drained. Benefit 2, better trade execution. When Yale took trades after sitting bored for hours, his execution was sloppy. He'd be so eager to finally take a trade that he'd enter without double-checking everything. He'd mess up position sizing. He'd forget to set his stop-loss right away. But when Yale took trades after being away from his desk doing something else, his execution was sharp. He was fresh, he was focused, he followed his checklist properly. His entries were precise. Better execution meant better results, even on the same setups. Benefit 3, improved life outside trading. This might seem unrelated to trading performance, but it mattered. Before, Yale's entire day revolved around sitting at his desk. He had no time for the gym, no time for hobbies, no time for friends. He told himself, I'm a trader. I need to be available when opportunities appear. But opportunities didn't appear for 8 hours straight. Most of the time, Yale was just sitting there doing nothing. After implementing his solution, Yale had time for life. He went to the gym regularly, he read books, he saw friends, he worked on side projects. And here's what surprised Yale. Having a life outside trading made him a better trader. When trading was his entire identity, every trade felt like life or death. Every loss felt personal. Every boredom period felt like torture. But when trading was just one part of his life, when the thing he did rather than his entire existence, the pressure decreased. He could walk away from boring trading sessions without feeling like he was failing. He could take a loss without his whole day being ruined. Benefit 4. Increased profits. This is the obvious benefit, but it's worth stating clearly. By eliminating boredom trades, Yale's profitability increased dramatically. Remember those 47 trades Yale took during his problem hours over 6 months? The 35 boredom trades that lost him $8,000? Those were gone. But Yale also noticed something else. The 12 valid trades he took during those hours performed just as well as his other trades. The problem was never the time of day. The problem was the boredom trades contaminating his results. By eliminating boredom trades, Yale's overall win rate increased from 51% to 62%. His monthly profit increased from barely breaking even to averaging 8 to 10% consistent growth. The same strategy, the same markets. The only difference was removing boredom from the equation. So, how to know if boredom is your problem? Yale's story might resonate with you, but you might be wondering, is boredom really destroying my trades, or is it something else? Here are 5 signs that boredom is costing you money. Sign 1. Time-based patterns in your losses. Look at your trading journal. Do you have certain hours where your performance is significantly worse? Not hours with higher volatility or news events, that's different. But hours where you're consistently taking bad trades for no clear market-based reason. If yes, boredom is probably the cause. You're taking trades during those hours not because good setups appear, but because you're bored and desperate for action. Sign 2. Trades taken just because. Review your recent trades. How many of them did you take because they perfectly met your strategy criteria? And how many did you take because you'd been waiting a while and wanted to do something? If you find yourself taking trades that are close enough to your rules, that's boredom talking. Sign 3. Better results when busy. Think about days when you had other things to do, days when you could only check markets briefly, days when you were interrupted or had other responsibilities. Did you trade better on those days? If yes, it's because you didn't have time to get bored. You only took the most obvious setups because that's all you had time for. Sign 4. Post-loss patterns. Look at what you do immediately after taking a losing trade. Do you wait for the next valid setup? Or do you quickly take another trade because sitting with a loss feels unbearable? If you tend to trade more frequently after losses, boredom combined with frustration are driving those trades. Sign 5. Guilt about not trading. Do you feel guilty when you're not actively trading? Do you feel like you're wasting time if you're watching charts and not taking trades? Do you feel pressure to do something, even when your strategy says to wait? That guilt and pressure comes from boredom. Your brain is interpreting waiting as failure, and it wants you to take action to feel productive. If you identified with 3 or more of these signs, boredom is definitely costing you money, and you need a solution.
Before you can solve a problem, you have to admit it exists, and boredom in trading is no different. It sneaks in quietly, makes you restless, and before you know it, you're taking trades you know you shouldn't. So here's your step-by-step plan to fix it, based on what actually worked for Yale. Step 1. Identify your boredom pattern. Review your last 50 trades. For each trade, note the time you took it and whether it was a valid setup according to your rules. Look for patterns. Are there specific hours where you take more invalid trades? Are there specific conditions, like after losses or during slow markets, where you trade more impulsively? Write down your specific boredom pattern. Be honest and specific. Step 2. Create your pre-session plan. Starting tomorrow, spend 5 minutes before trading planning your session. Ask yourself, when is my strategy most likely to produce setups today? What will I do if no setups appear? What will I do after closing a trade? Write down specific answers. Not, I'll be patient, but if no setup by 10 a.m., I'll close my platform and go to the gym. Step 3. Build your activity list. Create a list of 10 to 15 activities you can do instead of trading when you're bored. Remember the 3 criteria. Physically moves you away from your computer, genuinely interesting or useful, and takes at least 30 minutes. Put this list somewhere visible. When boredom hits, pick an activity and do it. Step 4. Implement the re-entry rule. Create a rule for yourself. After leaving your trading desk, you cannot return for at least an hour. No exceptions. No checking, just quickly on your phone. 1 hour minimum. This forces you to actually engage with the alternative activity instead of hovering around your trading desk. Step 5. Track your results. For the next month, track 2 things: number of boredom trades per week and your win rate separated by valid setups versus boredom trades. Watch as your boredom trades decrease and your overall profitability increases. Step 6. Adjust your trading schedule. Based on your boredom patterns, adjust when you actually sit at your trading desk. If your strategy doesn't produce setups between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., don't be at your desk during those hours. Only be at your desk during hours when your strategy actually works. Use the rest of your time for other things. The bottom line: boredom is destroying your trades. Not obviously, not dramatically, but steadily, consistently, expensively. Every time you take a trade because you're bored, rather than because your strategy said to, you're bleeding money. Every time you lower your standards because waiting feels unbearable, you're sabotaging yourself. The solution isn't to fight boredom. You can't win that fight. The solution is to remove yourself from situations where boredom can make you trade. Plan your sessions. Create alternative activities. Leave your desk when no valid setups exist. And never, ever take a trade just because you're bored. Yale lost $8,000 to boredom before figuring this out. You don't have to. You now know what to look for and what to do about it. Boredom will always try to make you trade. Your job is to not be there when it does.